what we're hoping to achieve. But the only thing is, are you going to do the recording, or did you want me to start the recording?
I think
I think you
the
might have to.
recording you guys see that it says it's recording.
Can you repeat
No,
that?
repeat that.
I think
You
she was
see
saying that
it's
it started recording.
Oh, the recording already started. Okay.
recording.
All right. So, guys, how are you? My name is Erica Harris, and I am one of the librarians at the Essex campus. And what I will do is I will add my email address and my name to the chat because after we have today's session, you may have questions about something that you heard in class today, um, and you might want to email me directly. So I do have my email address in the chat for people that would like to use that or think they might need it later. Um, I have worked with Professor Joyner in some of her other econ classes, maybe covering different assignments. And this is the first time that I've actually sort of taught the class where I was covering these two particular assignments about the solar subsidies and also the what we were sort of discussing just in small banter about like the macroeconomics assignment where you're interviewing a person and then you're going to have to sort of maybe connect what was going on with that individual interview to sort of the larger global economics of the times that you're trying to establish when you're asking specific questions. um, Jennifer, if it's okay with you, I'm going to start with that assignment that's talking about interviewing a person at least 20 years older and getting sort of a macroeconomic a picture of what it was like for them to buy goods and services or pay for things in their lives. Because the interesting thing was that before you and I started working together consistently, I had a student from someone's class in econ, and I'm not sure, I can't remember at this point who the professor was, but a student approached the library about maybe 3 years ago with this assignment, and she said that she was hoping to find someone to interview. And since I'm the type of person that likes to help students with their projects in general, she ended up interviewing me for this very assignment. But what I found, the questions that she chose at that particular time were not very globally focused. It was very much a comparison of then and now. And so, what I found to be really interesting about the whole process of being interviewed for the assignment is that she was making me reach back into my memory and back in time, thinking about what I paid for stuff because I hadn't thought about it in years and years. And just to give you some examples, her questions were more along the lines of, well, what's your occupation? What's your age? Where do you live? And I responded to things like how much I paid for an undergraduate education, how much I paid for an apartment rental when I was first getting my first family apartment with my then husband and then just my first child. And then as time went on, we ended up in a townhome. We purchased a home. um what did the movies cost back then? So she asked me certain things, and I did not have the answers right in my head because I hadn't spent any time thinking about it until she asked me. And was so like driven trying to find, instead of just guessing, I was so driven to find like good answers. We actually had to combine our efforts to research together. Now, mind you, when she interviewed me, I was 48 years old at the time, so I was a little bit past that 20-year mark. I was like maybe at the 25-year mark, and it's been 3 years. I'm 51 now, so that would put me like for things like, how much did you pay for your undergraduate education? Well, that puts me back like about 30 years. So what we ended up doing was I would research some parts about what the time period that I knew that I was in school, or the time period where I had rented an ex apartment or whatever. And then she would fill in the gaps with like today's research, or like let's say that my college education as my first bachelor's degree as an undergraduate was 25 years back. I would say, well, I'm estimate about this a price for tuition and fees and maybe even housing in 1993, but you need to do it for 20 years. So then she'd have to also kind of fill in that 20-year mark. You know what I mean? Since even my time period even went back even further. So there were things that we were doing, like looking specifically at my situation since I was her interview subject. My situation was relative to actually going to my college website, doing like historic searches in Yahoo and Google. We landed even on some articles that had mentioned my university that had appeared in the databases because maybe Washington Post had done articles on the cost of college, and they picked a few regional colleges, and or picked and I happened to have gone to a historically black college and university called Norfolk State University. It's in Virginia. Some of you may have heard of it, maybe some have not, but um, Washington Post had done an article on college tuition, and they happened to mention Norfolk State University specifically, and they quoted like a tuition cost for that time period, and it was in an article from the 90s, and that was found in the databases because it had been covered by such a large publication or a large newspaper. Um, like when and then I was finding like regional newspapers that were still in the Wayback Machines or the archives of Google or Yahoo, where they have quoted like the Laurel Leader talking about the Lowe's movie theater tickets at the time were like $7 to $7.50, depending on whether you went during the premium movie time or maybe a little bit less during a matinee. And then now that movie theater is no longer in existence, but right in my same neighborhood, what replaced that movie theater was a Regal theater. And when I did the assignment 3 years ago, the ticket prices were hovering around somewhere between $13 and $15, but now they're all the way up. I think I went to the movies with my daughter just recently. Her ticket was like 20 something dollars, and she pushed in the little kiosk senior citizen price for me because I think she thinks she's funny. And she was trying to save the money on the ticket. She made me a senior citizen, but I'm not quite there yet. But I guess in her mind, that was fair. So, yeah, there's a lot of personalized research that had to go into me being able to even answer the questions. And so I think the questions really do matter in terms of what you're trying to achieve in your overall assignment. If you guys are being challenged by your professors to look at this from a global angle, you're going to have to spend some time crafting questions that will actually lend itself to that type of research. Um, but aside from me offering like the personalized sort of tracking or trail to what was going on in my specific life with what I was, paying for, we did cross match those things in things like the US government websites like consumer price indexing and some of the US labor and economic data sites. So there will be sort of like a layer of research that's sort of like the standard for that's sort of standardized, and then there might be a layer that's sort of personalized. But your questions are going to really matter in terms of making this more of a globally focused assignment, because I don't know if that was really her challenge 3 years ago when this assignment was being conducted by students. So that's just a little bit of a story about my familiarity from just being on the interviewee side of this assignment at one point. So I hope that was interesting and sort of give you some food for thought as you're making your way through it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to start sort of plowing through like parts of the library website that will be of interest to you to sort of tackle both of these projects. So I'm going to hit the share button. Did anybody have any questions for me before we get started?
Um, I just wanted to know, like, because I'm at work right now, but
Mm-hmm.
I am gonna stay during this little thing. So I was just gonna ask you, like, what time are you really at the library so I could like try and come over there and see?
Okay, so I work pretty much and on occasion 6 days a week. So if you're coming to the library, now mind you, here can everybody see the screen I'm sharing right now, which should be just the main CCBC homepage. And then from here, you just click library. And then don't forget that library links are in your Brightspace as well. Now, our hours for the entire library, if you're going to come and use computers, do research on your own or study on your own, come click on building hours in this upper right corner, and you'll see our hours for the whole entire semester with the exceptions. Okay. Now, the question was, when am I there? I probably won't be an interview subject for this class because I think that in a way, I kind of felt like she was smart to come to and ask a librarian because, like, I had a research mindset for this assignment. So she kind of had an advantage. But I think that what really makes it more of an equalizer is that you guys have a different challenge than that student, which is the global piece. And you'll have to think about the questions that might relate to a person's spending habits and maybe how global economics could have affected that. Um, you know, things that you might buy every day, but I don't know if there's a complete correlation between housing prices and global economics, but I'm not the economic expert, and Professor Joyner and also probably Professor Falcon might have those kinds of answers. And Professor Joyner, I don't know if you have anything to say about that, but to also answer your question is I'm mostly a 9 to 5 person. Um, I do adjust my schedule to have appointments with students either on site or in person. I do appointments virtually, and this is similar for other people on my team as well. And so if you try to catch me between 9 and 5 based on, openings in your schedule, then I'm here. But if you want to make an appointment with me, just offer up times that sort of work and maybe a little window of flexibility, and we'll try to meet in the middle and get an appointment scheduled to sort of talk about research stuff. But I probably would not be the interview subject for anybody in the econ classes this semester, just because I want to be a little more neutral and help you guys through the process rather than offer myself up as a subject. Does that make sense? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Um, so and I really probably want to spend a little more time talking with Jennifer and I'm sorry, Professor Joyner, and also maybe even also Professor Falcon about the types of questions they're looking for you guys to sort of answer from a global perspective, because I want to be prepared to be able to connect you to the source material that'll help you find your answers. So, we're on the library website. I already talked about the hours. When I spoke about the research appointment, especially now, who was the student that just asked me the question about when am I available? Can you just tell me your name?
Tavon.
Tavon. Okay, nice to meet you. So Tavon and everybody else who's listening, and for everybody who's going to be tuning into the recording, come under quick links under the library website and where it says RAP, Research Assistance Program. Click that. Here's a few little readable points about the program, and click the red box and it will link you to the form. From here, you just fill out the information and add a little bit about your availability. It's just the first and second choice option in the on the form. But when you have this questions or comments, add a little few notes about your flexibility. Like, I put in this date and this date, but usually on Tuesdays I have like 3 hours open before I go to my job, or I'm stay on campus 2 to 3 hours to get in some extra study time before I go home and feed my children. Whatever is relevant to your situation that will help us get appointment booked for you, please let us know, how we can get extra windows of time to really work with you on an appointment basis. Now, the other thing that is available in terms of general help is that we have a chat. And I'm going to click this little tag that says Ask Now. And sometimes this will slide out when you're just on the library website in general searching for things. And it's just sort of way of just, hey, do you need some help? Just kind of slide out on its own spontaneously every few seconds. It's a little annoying, I'm sorry, but at the same time, it's very effective in encouraging students to ask for help when they need it. So you just fill in your name, your email address, and put in a basic question. And this is a 24-hour help service. What I do want you to be aware of is the fact that this is very much like walking into the library doors while we're open for business, and like getting help that's available with everybody else that walked in. It's not the same as an appointment, because the appointment is much more hands-on, much more detailed, and much more focused on your assignment. This is like helping you with a few tips along the way, or helping you with a little information to get you started. So I would just manage my expectations and not think of this as something where like you're going to be able to just chat with the librarian a whole hour and get all your source material delivered to your email. It doesn't quite work that way, because when we're chatting on this service, we might be sitting on the floor and taking chat in order with the people that we're helping out on site. Um, this is connected to a 24-hour national and international cooperative of librarians that will answer around the clock, kind of depending on where they are in the world. And we participate in this. So even though you might get one of the CCBC librarians more than likely during our business hours, if it's outside of business hours, you're more than likely to get one of the librarians in the cooperative. And the other thing that you should know about it is that, like, even if you happen to come on while we're during like CCBC hours, and if there's so many questions that come in at once and it's more than we can handle at one time, it will roll up to the cooperative anyway. So that's there for you 24 hours a day. Um, so if you look into the researchers assignment criteria that was given to you by your professors, there's already some really good helpful links there. I'm going to just remind you that they're there, but when you come to this box here on the library website, click on research guides. um, there you can either scroll alphabetically till you reach the E's for economics, or you could have typed it into this top search box for the library guides. So under the macroeconomics tab, these are like some of the sources that will help you sort of gauge the prices or the costs of things depending on who your subject is. So we've got the prices and wages by decade. This is the University of Missouri happened to do a really, really good guide on that. And so we've sort of added their link to our resources because they did such a good job with theirs. The changing price of stuff, it's sort of like historical things in terms of prices, comparisons. Consumer price index, I think I mentioned that briefly, as one of the things that I had to help that student consult, just to and generally cross-check the things that I was trying to make sure that my memory wasn't failing me, and cross-check to make sure that, like, if I was saying, oh, I think it cost this or that, to see if it sort of like lined up, or if I was like in the at least the right range. Economic census data also from US Gov. So there's quite a bit of stuff here. Um, I know if she had asked me how much I paid for lights, water, or electricity in my home, I probably would have had the hardest time remembering. I probably would have had to go back to like the standardized government stuff and try to trace down for maybe my state or my area to determine how much I spent, because I wouldn't have remembered. But some things I did remember, and some things were so specific to me personally that I actually had to go to like the websites and like look up those charging entities, specifically. Um, it'd be interesting to know because like most of the people in the greater Baltimore and even parts of the Prince George's County region get their most people, a lot of people from Maryland get their energy from BG&E. So it would be even interesting to know if BG&E even had a source that sort of tracks the costs, per unit energy. They may or may not. I have no idea. It might be something I can look into. But they also had the deregulation of energy, where now all these little smaller startup companies were like being like energy resellers, so to speak. And people were paying like all of these sliding scale prices, and it was supposed to be better for the consumer, but I don't know if it necessarily is or isn't, because sometimes you come in at a very cheap price on some of those energy prices, and then lo and behold, it goes up really high and it sort of exceeds what BG&E's main source and energy company would have charged you. So, that's something else. That's another conversation. It's not about the solar per se. It's more or less about the electric and gas that's in your house and how that's powered up. But that's an interesting segment of energy costs to sort of think about and research, especially in a global sense. Um, what else can I think of? If you're talking about ask now, this person I didn't. Okay, so she also asked me at the time that I started out going from like my undergraduate to my graduate school experience and what I paid as a graduate student. I had to look up that information specifically, um, because my graduate school was University of Michigan. I had to look up what I was paying for graduate school costs and tuition and housing at the time, and so that did sort of kind of come closer into that 20-year range that she was talking about. But even still, I was like, I had attended that program in 1995. I encouraged her to look up the 1999 or 1998 pricing. And that's what we did together, because that was one of those things where I had to go back into I think it was a Google Wayback article that I found that referred to University of Michigan Rackham Graduate School. So the details that I still had in my head helped me trace down the information. So that was about the education. So then when I go from the educational piece of my life into the career piece of my life and the salary, um, I couldn't remember my exact salary. So I had to look up, um, I think I had to estimate what I was making as a first year professional librarian working for this District of Columbia public library system. But what I was able to do is look up the government table for like and go by grades and steps, and estimate what a first year librarian new to DC Public Library would make, or new librarian, and it was quite a bit of a gap, a big difference in salary from when I started to what a first year librarian would make in current times. So, but once again, I was using a lot of local information to track that down, memory, estimations, and then going off of the local documented information as well. So, the data and economic indicators that you're going to find here in this block on on the research guide, of course, these are going back to a lot of the government-based information. But what you might have to find is that you might have to like look up Baltimore County data if the person you're interviewing always lived and worked in Baltimore County, or if they work for local government, or if they worked even for like local industry. So you might have to like, go even beyond what the government said and look at what might be in some of the local informational resources. But once again, if you're taking it up to the global level, what are the kinds of questions that you're going to ask that might have affected that person? If there were things going on in the global economy, and a lot of times what really hits our pockets most in global economy is issues of energy and gas and fuel. That's a big one, and food prices, because of like what we either import or export. Those are the two big ones, and like we'd have to like really kind of rely on the government data for stuff like that. Jennifer, Professor Drainage, did you have anything that you wanted to add to the things that I've said so far?
No, I think we're good. I just want to make sure those who just joined, there are two classes here. We're looking at both
Mm-hmm.
201 and 202.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's important, as well as going, before you start showing the other
Mm-hmm.
databases and stuff, the fact that for 201, when they're talking about 20 years old, guys, you can interview someone who's 40 years older than you. It doesn't matter, but you can't, you want them to have some distance, at least a minimum of 20. So just keep that in mind. Um, and we'll talk more about the micro uh, project about solar and subsidies.
Mm-hmm.
That's the main key, the subsidies.
Okay.
Um,
So what I would just walk away with is that this guide on economics with the tabs on macro, micro, environmental economics, that sort of thing, these are going to help you get started. These might not solve all of the issues in the assignment, but there's a lot of stuff pinned here that will help you figure out how to do these comparisons in cost or price or to really, really see the inflation or whatever it is that you're trying to examine per question or per issue. Okay, so when I come back here to research guides, just know that there might be some other guides here that might be related to your topics with the economic issues, but that economics guide is going to carry the biggest punch in terms of research. Going back to the CCBC main library page, um, when you're doing the research on these issues, especially when it comes to things like the solar, um, or if there's other related issues, some things that you might want to be interested in doing. You might like choose to go into our video databases. We have two databases that are really good with helping people find documentary information on various topics. And I would highly recommend the academic video online. And I'm just going to click it briefly so you can see the interface. Now, I know that people also use YouTube for stuff. I know YouTube is great for certain things, but there's sometimes things that you can't always get on YouTube, or you can't always get the full thing, or it gets taken down or moved around. Whereas this is subscribed content, and you might be pleasantly surprised that you get the full content of something in one of the subscribed library databases as opposed to just relying on YouTube for the information. So as you can see, Academic Video Online has so much to offer in terms of documentary content. You can also do a search. Solar energy might be interesting, solar panels. There might be stuff here that's very informative. Um, but just sort of look at the descriptions of things to see if it's going to give you some of the content that you're looking for in terms of whether how the subsidies are helping or not helping your average consumer, or are they going to be good for our economic status overall. Now they will be, because I mean, I'm one of those people that believes that clean energy is a good thing and that we should always be going as far as we can to like not use all these fossil fuels in the environment, because but at the same time it's a dirty process creating a solar energy panel. It's not clean. It's a lot of like not so nice resources that go into making something that's supposed to help us in the long run. So there's more than just the economics of having it or not having it. There's also that environmental take, but you are being asked to focus on the environment, I'm sorry, the economic side of it. So then I'm going to back up a little bit and also show you Films on Demand, which has lots of videos on topics similar to the Academic Video Online. Um, They have some things that do overlap, but like once again, there's things that you're going to find here that you're not going to find in the other. There's going to be things that you find in either or that you may not find in full content form on YouTube. So, I guess I can do the solar energy search again, and just see what they have to offer. Just different things. Some of it might be more scientific, but here's like one right here, like, looking at the descriptions, green economy, solar revisited, or I might want to do solar energy and economics, and hopefully maybe pull up some videos that are much more related to, oh, I know, I should have put in subsidies. See if I can see what that says. Subsidies. That will change. That might change it a little bit. Let's see what happens. Fossil fuel politics, green banking and investment, ethical markets. Now, other countries have different takes on it, and they may be a little further along than the US in terms of implementing these things. So that might be like a global angle that you might want to consider. Um, Countries like Germany and some of the other countries in Europe are very, very big on using the solar panels and putting them on homes, as you can. That's kind of been a thing in their country for a while. So yes, these are definitely ways to get up to speed on knowing some of these issues. The videos can help you understand things that in a much faster way than reading the books. Now, as a librarian, I would never discourage people from reading books, but I also know that in this academic world, your timeline for getting things done is so short, and I'm trying to just suggest things that will help you get your research and your understanding of the issues done quickly, so that when you do approach your reading, you're that much more informed at a certain on a certain level. So when you're reading through the material, it makes that much more sense to you. So going back to the main library page, moving through the site again, I'm going to click on books and ebooks. Now, when I click on the books and ebooks and I search this platform, what I'm doing is I'm going into the library's online classic catalog, meaning this is where you want to search when you find out what we still have on our shelves that's in print form. Even our remnant DVDs that are combined on the shelves with the print books. And before we got some of our other bells and whistles on our library dashboard and some of the tools that we have to offer to be able to like discover our materials, we did add streaming videos to the online catalog search. So once again, if you're going to do something on the solar subsidies, I can put in those search words: solar energy, solar subsidies, and just see, oh, it didn't like subsidies as a search word. Okay, I'll go back with just solar energy. It's a little more broad, because like sometimes the words, depending on the resources in that searching to, yeah, I don't like that. Sorry guys, I don't know why it's acting weird on me at the moment that I'm having class, but I'm gonna try and get it to respond to me, or I might have to just come back. Okay. So put in solar energy instead. I might even add the word, add a keyword and economics to this. It jumped around on me, but solar energy and economics. Does anybody have any idea why I'm adding like quotes around my search words? Why I'm adding words like and, economics. Does anybody have any?
So it, oops, sorry.
Go ahead. Who's
So
speaking?
I'm Soraya
Hi,
Lamonius.
Soraya.
Hello. So it can keep your search like specific and just for the things that you want.
Okay, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Quotes around two or more words tell the database or the search tool or the search engine, I need you to search this in exact order, not split up solar and subsidies or split up solar and energy. I needed to say solar energy. I needed to say solar subsidies. Um, and that's a good way of pinpointing search words or key search phrases, especially when those words given in that specific order that does actually mean something with the search, you know. It's especially helpful when like you're searching for something and they really do it is really represented in 2 or 3 words, you know, like if you were going to search for US Department of Energy, you might want to wrap quotes around Department of Energy so it doesn't split up Department Energy or, you know, or any of that stuff. So that's what I did. I wanted to say solar energy in, you know, in a string. And then, but I could have also done it like this. And oh, by the way, when I added the economics, I did get some stuff that sifted to the top that might have been helpful, that might be helpful even for this project. Economics of clean energy coming down. Some of this is might be more environmental or sustainable, but jump down, solar powered charging infrastructure for electric. Okay, so um energy 21st century, and it might be a mixture of both. It might have a little bit of an energy sustainability thrust, but then if you flip through the pages it might have also an economics thrust. So books that are on the shelves will say stacks at a certain campus location. If you want to look at our ebooks, definitely those would be available in full text form directly from your screen. um, I'll just open up this one just for demonstration's sake. Energy Sprawl Solutions. I'm going to click on it. Clicked on the title link, and then I click on View this ebook. And then from here, I want to go into the full text PDF of the book. Now, the book will, on your screen, function very similarly to a printed book that you have pulled from a shelf. And you can flip through it page by page, or you can come over to the anchor links in the table of contents and jump around. Solutions, practice, or let's say that I want to focus on some of those economic issues and pricing or consumers. I might want to put in something like economics and pinpoint where in the book a certain thread of research or a certain concept exists within the book specifically, and then I can just jump to that page directly and maybe read that section, or you know. And sometimes they might not be as on target as you like, but I want to more or less demonstrate um, you know, what is possible with the, you know, technical use of ebooks more so than pinpoint the information at this moment. Okay. um so this is one of those things where maybe perusing the book a little bit or reading the description notes will help you decide whether it would work for how you're approaching your assignment in this course. Okay, so I'm going back to the library home for a second, or better yet, I'm going to go to the return to the browse. Were there any questions that people had for me about using the films, using the catalog in general before we jump into like how to search for the articles? Oh, another thing that I want to also point out is like, let's say that you are at the Essex campus, but you want a book from the Catonsville campus. You can certainly click on the link and do a request for pickup. And at this point, you would enter your username or like your student login, your password, and then open up the page to request the book. And you can use the widget on screen. I won't go into it right now, but use the widgets on screen to select which campus you want the book delivered to. Now, it's better to use that service when you have a nice long window of time to get the work completed, because it can take like up to 5 days for the book to be delivered to the campuses, between the campuses. Normally it didn't used to take that amount of time, but you know, with a lot of retirements happening in our mail room, in our facilities department, you know, it's one of those situations where we have to have a little longer wait time expectation for the books to arrive between campuses. So I'm going back to the library home. Now remember, we were just here, and just note that you don't find articles in this catalog platform for when you're doing your searching or your research here. It's your books on shelf, your DVDs on shelf, your ebooks, and also your streaming videos. But when you come here to article databases, you have about 73 databases to choose from, give or take. Sometimes we add a few, sometimes we cancel a few if they're not being used very well, or they don't seem to be really working out well with our student assignments. But all of the databases are listed by name, A to Z, just by going from A, B, C, and that sort of thing. However, nobody expects any one of you guys to remember these databases specifically by name. We don't even remember them, and we work with them every day. We have a lot of the most popular titles and the most commonly used titles in our brains, but like sometimes we'll have to go back to the cluster areas where we've cross-linked the databases by various large groups or subjects. So in this case, an economics class would probably go for the stuff that's under business. It should probably say business and economics, but just understand that a lot of things that might be helpful to you in terms of article research on economic topics, they're going to be probably available to you through the business collection of databases. Okay, so ABI Inform is a good one. I also think ProQuest Central is very good because it gives you the ABI Inform searching content as well as some other databases that would connect you to economics or business. But ABI Inform, if you want to search it all on its own for economics issues, it's probably a good way to look at things. Let me see. Going back to the business databases, we also have the Market Research Collection, the Business Source Premier. Regional business news might be helpful for the assignment where you're doing the microeconomic data and you're trying to like piece together that person's track that person's individual life and connect it to some of the larger things that were happening in the economy. ProQuest Central is also good. I mentioned that. Okay. Now, I also want to have you guys realize that, like, because you're going back in time to look at things like the history of people's lives, but you're also kind of maybe even want to connect it to the history of things in the economy. The history databases might even be helpful just a tiny bit to some folks, um, because maybe 20 years ago, let's see, 20, maybe even 30 years ago, or whatever time period you're trying to focus on. But I'm thinking 20 years ago, I was having my son, and what was going on in the economy that time that I can totally remember? Well, my memory might not be that helpful, but I also have something called a US history in context or a world history in context. I can click on one and still search the other, believe it or not. So here I am in US history in context. I can do US history, world history, or both. And I might want to get some of this sort of global economic data in my data, or just like the situations and how it affected the world and how it might have affected people. But I can do browsing topics and I can go by decades, you know. I might even want to look in here and look at the presidents of the time, because what might happen with these presidential searches, I guess we would be looking at George W. Bush during that time period for 20 years ago. Am I right? Yeah. So George W. Bush. So here's his basic article as a president, but it talks about his whole administration as well as economic policy. So reading stuff like that will like actually put you on to things that you might want to trace down into your global scale economic research. So I'm going to read more. And uh, yeah, we had 9/11 happen. That was big 20 years ago. Why, how could we just celebrated this. That's a big one. That affected a lot of things economically. Bush was giving out stimulus checks back then. Um, so yeah, we were at war. Um, we ended up going to a war with Iraq as opposed to Afghanistan during those times. But a lot of people will say it was about oil prices. And once again, I think I said in the beginning of class, the biggest things that are going to affect us over here globally are things like our prices for clothing, food, and definitely those energy prices and fuel for the vehicles, because Americans typically in our culture, we are very, very dependent on our vehicles, and we want our gas cheap so we can fill up and go wherever we want in our car, even if it's 5 minutes to the store or 1 minute to the store in our car, you know. I just recently visited Costa Rica this past spring with my daughter, just as our like mother-daughter week in Costa Rica during Mother's Day weekend. It started at Mother's Day weekend and lasted the whole weekend. It was really wonderful. And one of the things that was nice about visiting there is that we go on like little excursions or tours, and we learned about how people in that country, by and large, really take energy very, very seriously, and they deliberately drive small cars as opposed to our culture where a lot of times we want the biggest vehicle we can afford, you know. They have like um they rely on geothermal caching from their volcanoes, so the majority of the energy that fuels the homes and the buildings, the commercial buildings, is like clean energy. So a lot of sometimes of what's affecting us in this country is also cultural, you know, and that's something to keep in mind. Okay, so I have talked about like perusing the economics research guide, perusing the business um, databases that have an also economic information automatically contained in them. And I've also talked about perusing the history databases to find out more about what was happening in the world economy at the time. Um, you can also do another kind of searching by using CCBC Smart Search, which is kind of the great starting point for any type of research because it combines searching from the majority of these 73 databases plus pulls in the records from the classic catalog of books on shelf and the electronic books. Plus, it includes, to some extent, the video databases because, like, we separated these two out, but really it's the databases are the databases. So essentially, what you're doing is you're combining these three platforms into smart searching, and that gives you a very wide net to cast over several databases so that you're not having to pick and choose one by one. You're just going to see what's available related to your topic and then start to sort of narrow things down from there. So, I don't know, maybe if we did something like world economics and I did what, I don't know. Um, I'm hoping that it'll give me a research starter or global economics. Maybe it will give me a research. Maybe I'll change it to global and I'll get a different sort of search. Trying to see if it'll give me a research starter on that. No, it didn't give me a research starter, but it gave me some books across the platforms that might help me understand my topic a little bit better. Um, and like I said, your professors have kind of prescribed what you guys need in the assignment, and they've included some resource material right in the assignment criteria. So don't skip over those parts, but just know that like this is really good for free text searching or you know, like just doing your own thing when it comes to search. It's like it's almost like a needle in a haystack approach. Like if I want to do some searching and I want to do historic searching and also searching that I want to like bring up to date in current times, I can also use date filtering in a few of the databases where I say, okay, so 20 years ago, I'm talking like 2000-ish or 20, it would have been 2002, the year that my second child was born. So like 2002 to 2022, or I can just do all 2000 to 2002 data because that's roughly about the time period that I want to find out some of the information. Um, about what was going on in the economy in the world. So let's just say darn it. Let's just say that I'm going to go from 2002 to 2003, that 3-year span that was like about 20-ish years ago. And then I want to change my searching to something like, oh, excuse me, I'm trying to write consumers. I'm going to do fuel and American and consumers during this time period, just because I want to just get cast a wide net and see what's out there. Okay, so I'm getting some books, and maybe I want to even add and economics just because I want to add it. So can, I'm getting some things that may or may not be super relevant, but I'm have to sift through it, or I might have to adjust my searching, or I might not want to like look at the books initially. Maybe I want to come over here to source types and go with magazines and news, um, to sort of get an overview. Um, will the great American shopping spree end? Like prices, like, we have a fast fashion issue in the globe where we buy all these clothes super cheap that are manufactured super cheap and shipped over here from China. And yet, we discard the fashion so fast, and then it's ending up in uh, our, out in the environment as trash, and trash that's not degrading very quickly, because you think, oh, it's cloth, it's gonna just, mold out and just disintegrate. Well, it takes time for that to happen. And in the meantime, it ends up in the oceans. And it's not just like natural, sustainable cloth. Sometimes this fast fashion is made with like materials that don't degrade that quickly, or that's not that sustainable. So, if we're talking about different things of connecting an individual person to what's happening in the global economy, that's just one of those things. Um, Virtue of restraint, let's see, World Watch deals with excessive choices of consumer products and other services. So you might, oh, what is the energy policy? So I went back in time during this 3-year period, and I'm just, I put the fuel in here, but it's giving me even some other things that are relative to American economics that we need to know about, and or what we might want to connect to both of the projects, whether it be about the solar energy and fuel supply, or whether it be about like, the macro project that you're doing where you're, tracing a person from then now to then. Uh, so yes, I think it's going to be more or less thinking around the different issues and maybe zooming in on, articles or maybe even books or other sources that help you learn about these. But when it comes to just the pulling together just the data, that research guide is going to maybe help you out a lot, because it's connecting you to um, those government sources, and maybe even some other sources beyond government sources that will help you trace this information. I think that's the most that I can say in general about these two projects together. Did I miss anything, Jennifer?
No, I was just thinking about that. I was wondering if at this time, did any of the students have any questions um, or any specific questions? If anyone is on from my class that just started on Monday from 202, um, you know, all of this is really new. However, um, the best policies on how best practices, excuse me, on, just navigating the database. So does anyone have any questions?
Now, don't be shy.
No?
I know that I was like showing you a lot of techniques with quotes and using ands and things like that. Those are Boolean techniques in searching, and I I those those types of techniques, you don't feel uncomfortable if you like, why is she doing all those searches? I don't usually search that way. I usually just search with a few words and hopefully I land on what I need. But I've helped students with searches to the point where I will just write them a string and say, plug this in, copy it and paste it from this email or copy and paste it from this chat and plug it in exactly the way that I just searched it. And you might get better results or more on target results. So don't worry about not really knowing those techniques that I sort of demonstrated, but just know that they're a thing and they can actually help refine your searches. Aside from that,
So my other just comment, we've talked about searching and using the database. We've kind of walked through the major databases that we have. Also, guys, both projects, the one for 201 and 202, they are APA 7th edition.
yes. Oh,
And so
yes.
your citations are going to be important, making sure you know how to write the research paper, everything from the title page to the reference page
Mm-hmm.
and everything in between. So there's a guide. Do you want to show them that guide?
Yes, I
Okay.
can. It's cross-linked in the economics guide, the APA page, but if you come to citation basics on the screen, or if you go to the economics guide, you can pretty much land in the same place. Citation basics is here. And I'm showing you this because like across your, I mean, this class is going to require you to use APA 7, right?
Yes.
But you know, depending on what courses you end up taking while you're here at CCBC, you might have a professor that asks for MLA, a professor that might ask you for CSE, which is Council of Science Editors. A lot of the environmental science professors ask for this. And also there's the Chicago Turabian style for like history. So, um, we could get into an explanation of the the differences, but the most important takeaway for this particular class is that when you come to this page, you want to just know that we have handouts that are electronic that help with the formatting if you're going to do them from scratch. Here's some examples that help with also like formatting, based on the different types of information resources. We also have, you know, citing an infographic, but more importantly, let me just show you this. Take down, I'm gonna put this in the chat real quick. Let me open up this screen. Need to put something in the chat. There is the www.apa.org website, and that's the actual affinity, the website for the affinity organization American Psychological Association. That's their website, their main or you know official website. But when you go there, I'm not going to click it from the chat. I'm scared I'm going to lose my screen. I'm going to do it from the screen. So when you go there, if you go to www.apa.org, it's going to ask you to go under education and career. Oh no, what am I saying? Oh, sorry guys. Let me correct this. It's the apastyle.org. apastyle.org. Okay, that's the one. And I'll put that in the chat. So apastyle.org, this site, I'm so glad that they decided to publish this site because this is APA publishing gurus sort of coming together and offering up a site that really helps the person who's publishing an APA style, whether they're doing it for a college course and just doing it for their professor, or if they're doing it professionally when they're submitting article manuscripts to professional and scholarly publications. This page is like a treasure trove of information to help students and other people um, do things like paper format, in-text citations. I think under paper format, you can even get the sample papers here. Um, So yeah, just understand that, like, here's sample papers. So student sample papers don't have the same requirements anymore that professional manuscripts have. But here's a student sample paper right from apastyle.org. And it's just basically showing you that you have a title page plus the student's name, where they go to school, their course, their professor, the date of submission. And it used to be that there was this thing called a running head at the top of the page. That's no longer required for a student paper, but it is required for professional publications. But if you have a professor that's really old school, not necessarily at CCBC, but or at CCBC or anywhere else that you may attend school after CCBC, and they require you as a student to do the running head, don't just bust them out and argue with them about, that's not the requirement anymore. If they want you to do it and they're making it part of their grade and they're being sticklerish about it, just follow what the professor says do. But the official guidelines say that, you just want to add bold headers and bold subheaders that relate to your topic. And maybe there's a conclusion section or and then of course the references page. Okay, so every source that you use is going to be aligned alphabetically on your references page, just like when you were using MLA for an English class. All of your sites, which were lined up under the works cited page, were aligned alphabetically. The process of capturing the citations is very similar, because if you're using library resources or websites that give you citation help, it's quite easy to get a citation. Like, look at if I click on this, like, remember I was doing that back layer research of articles about consumer spending and consumer economy issues. So if I come in here and I like look at the this is the records, more detailed record screen, and for the article, I could also click on the PDF full text that makes it look more rich, like it came from the document. The publication itself. But over here off to the side, and sometimes you might have to look for it across the top or across the bottom, but look for the option in any of the library databases that allow you to cite allow you to cite. So I clicked a little object over here, and it's like a piece of paper. If the tooltip didn't pop up, but this is the citation button or the citation icon. And then if I scroll just barely down this list, here's an APA citation. I would just like highlight it, copy it, and then add it to a Word document. And I highly, highly, highly encourage students to cite as you go along. I don't care if you don't end up using that article, or you like feel like, there's like maybe a 50% chance I'll use it, or 50% or less. Go ahead and capture the citation as you go. I cannot tell you how much it will save you time to have a working references page that you're always adding sources to, because if you end up not downloading the actual article, then you at least have a citation to help you find it again. But I also encourage you to download the article. See that little button I'm clicking on here? Download that article. Give it a file name that makes sense, like, Calabrese Spendthrift, because that's part of the title too. And then when you are looking at a bunch of things that you've captured or downloaded, a bunch of articles or PDFs that you've captured in a folder that you've dedicated to this project. Maybe you make a little folder on your laptop, or maybe you do this on your desktop computer at home. Maybe you do this in Office 365 if you're coming to the library and using a computer to get your work done on a regular basis. But either way, however your organization process is, make sure that you're keeping up with your source material as you're finding it, and not just grabbing information and not grabbing the parts that you need to like document where you're getting your information. All right, so close that. And so yeah, cite as you go, download as you go. It is so much easier to just swipe something off the download page than to have to spend another hour or 2 or 3 hours or another half a day trying to put this back together. put the source information and the citation information back together before you hand in a paper, especially if you're under the gun to finish it. I definitely encourage students to also use the library wrap appointments prior to writing their papers because we work with the writing center. We work kind of off the writing center in terms of what we offer and what they offer. We offer some similar services. We help you with kind of organizing your ideas. We help you with outlining. We help you with your citations. We help you with sort of getting started by finding some good resources and giving you that hands-on help. But once you have worked with us to get a solid body of research together and readings, you need to sit and read that stuff and make your notes and start to write an informed paper that you then take to the writing center after you've gotten that good first draft going. Now, not that they won't help you with research and brainstorming and all those things as well, but wouldn't you rather spend that 30 minutes of or 45 minutes of time with them on polishing up your content when you can get, extra time with us to do the research part and the planning part? So we do a little bit of help with writing, but it's very, very little because we are not English faculty and we don't spend our day to day coaching and grading writing assignments. We spend our day to day on the information products. They don't spend their day to day on understanding information products and taking in the breadth of questions that we get from students and trying to track down sources. So that's how you can use the strength of the library versus the strength of the writing center to maximize these services to your benefit.
Well, I really appreciate your services this evening, Ms. Harris. Students, do you guys have any questions?
I'll put the
Any
I'm going to
concerns?
put the
Yeah,
APA style
okay,
in the
so
chat.
definitely. Everyone's pretty good where they are. Okay. Well, I certainly appreciate everyone taking their time to come and
I do too.
hang out for this hour and 20 minutes or 30 minutes. And information is helpful. You can take this type of research information into any class or course you take. But definitely know that they're available. Reach out, and make the connection with the librarians. So thanks for everyone coming. Thanks again. And you guys can have a wonderful evening.
I have a question.
Sure.
Sure.
I joined a little late.
Mhm.
From what I heard, it was a lot of interesting things. I'll definitely go back and look at the recording to see what I've missed. Um, Definitely would have helped to know that when I first started. I am in like a
Oh,
couple in my almost graduating. Hopefully this semester.
Mhm.
oh,
Well,
okay.
hopefully it'll now that you know, maybe it'll be a little easier going from this point in the year to the end.
And for wherever you decide to transfer.
Mhm. Yeah, because some of the services or some of the ways that I was describing how to like get
Hmm.
information, research your topics, maybe you might go to another university when you transfer from CCBC. They will have a library website. They will have librarians. They might even have chat. In
Hmm.
fact, these are becoming like standard and universal services in
That's
academic libraries. So look for it wherever you go next. And I
Gotcha.
cannot tell you how many students come back to CCBC after I'm like, "Are you a CCBC student?" "No, I used to go there, but I'm at Towson now, but like you guys always helped me." I'm like, "Well, you need to go to Towson Library because that's where you're paying tuition now. Because the stuff I'm sending you, you might not even be able to access it because you're not in our system anymore.
Yeah.
But they come back and we still give advice even if you don't go to school here anymore. You might not be able to get full text access like you
Yeah. I think
did.
that was one of my I guess how do I say it? One of my weaknesses was finding the sources. It was really hard for me to find very good sources, and I guess I was very picky and very I don't know, I just didn't know if it was a good source or not, or very undecisive. So, but definitely will um look into those things.
Okay.
Well,
Thank
thanks
you
for
very
sharing
much.
that, Luis. And I
Yeah.
just want to say, just based on what you said, I was having a research session, in a one-to-one session with a student yesterday, and she's working on a very, very complex assignment in English.
Mhm.
And she had a certain mindset about how she wanted to approach the topic, but I had to sort of advise her to not lock herself into just that layer of how she was thinking about it,
Mhm.
maybe broaden it out, because you don't want to create a problem for yourself in a research project where you can't be a little bit flexible in how you bring a perspective to a topic. You know what I'm saying?
I definitely understand because I think that's what happens to me. I think that
Mhm.
maybe I get to the topic too much that I can't talk a lot about it, or maybe I hit the points too soon or too fast to then not being able to, I guess, explain myself at a longer distance, I would say, is what I think you're trying to, right?
Yeah, and the problem can be twofold, because the problem can also be that a person is having such a hard time deciding on what they want to say and what they want to build. Like, they're having a hard time building
Hmm.
a workable thesis where
Yeah.
they can actually incorporate information and have the flexibility to use different sources when they don't necessarily find that one shred of information that they were looking for, but they find other things that still inform the topic. So you don't want to be too wide open that you
Hmm.
can't finish a project, and you don't want to be too narrow that none of the sources will work.
I think you're literally describing all my problems.
Well,
I'm
talk to
like
the
sometimes
librarians.
either
Yeah.
or.
Or the writing center coaches. Talk to either one
Yeah.
of
I
us.
did I did get into it for one semester, but I did stop. I guess I just need to remind myself every semester I have help.
Hmm.
Thank you
Absolutely.
very much.
You're
You're
welcome.
very welcome.
Have a good night.
All right.
Thanks.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, all. Thank you for your attention.
You're welcome, Maria. All right. So that works. Let me stop the recording.